Baruch Hashem. Today's daf yomi is Zevachim daf Samachas, but we're going to start on the bottom of Samach Zayin and Beis. The Gemara. Let's just go over a couple of things. My father says this sugya is for the birds. That's his joke, but anyway. So the Gemara. This Gemara is discussing the birds. And the birds are as follows. Basically, that a woman could have to bring a bird offering in either if she gives birth, that's called a yoledes. If she gives birth, she has to bring an olar or chatas, or if she makes a vow, an nedava. There are other cases where you have to bring birds, but I'm just going to try and make it as simple as possible by discussing what our mission is talking about. So, or she can make a vow to bring an olas of birds. As we've learned before, an olah is brought above on the altar and a chatas is brought below. This pair of birds that she brings is called a kan. It's called two pairs of birds, and it's discussed in the tractate called Kinim, Meseches Kinim, which is known as one of the most complicated tractates, just because they're doing different combinations to figure out the exact number of offerings. Because many things could go wrong, and that's what our Mishnah start talking about. But the one other halacha that we should bear in mind is that the bird offerings can come from either one of two birds, either a tor, which is usually translated as a pigeon, that has to be an adult, or a b'nei yonah. A b'nei yonah is a baby bird, a dove. So she cannot mix and match. It has to be either a tor, two torim, or two b'nei yonah. So all sorts of things can happen. The Kohen, when these birds look identical, he can accidentally bring the olah below and the chatas above, and then he'd have to rebring it. Or he could actually bring, he's not sure which he did, if he brought the olah below and the chatas above, and then out of a doubt, he has to bring it again. Also, she could have declared at the outset of the vow, I'm bringing, and then forgot what she did. So then the Kohen would have to bring all of them. Basically, that's the mahalach of the Mishnayos that we were discussing in yesterday's daf. And the only reason why we're mentioning it is because it's almost all tangential. That the reason why we're mentioning it is because yesterday we discussed that, let's say the Kohen brought an olah, and he brought the olah, but he did it with all the characteristics of a chatas. He brought it below, he did a hazah, he didn't do a full havdalah. So then, according to Rabbi Yoshua, the olah, through a concept called hamshacha, becomes a chatas. The olah is transformed into a chatas. And in that context, the Gemara tries to say, no, the olah doesn't become a chatas. And the Gemara raised the question from the Mishnah in Kinim. And the Gemara said from the Mishnah in Kinim, if you want to say that this Mishnah is not like Rabbi Yoshua, well, I'll prove to you it is like Rabbi Yeshua. And that's why we're citing this whole Mishnah. The Boaz is right next to me. What's wrong with the sea right next to me? Then the Gemara proves it from this whole Mishnah, which is basically not relevant except for at the end. Wow, somebody take a picture of that. That's what we call a chef. You look at how beautiful that does. That's a geschmack thing that Boaz did. Look, that Boaz, you got talent. By the way, Boaz, we're going to have to talk to you about getting the bagels from the what's it called? Cafe K? Yeah. Yeah, but they open up at noon, right? But we'll have to get bagels one morning from there. All right, so there's a Gemara right there on your thing. It's a Steinsaltz Gemara. You could use it though. What? So the whole reason why it's mentioned is only because we want to prove that Rabbi Yeshua is the author of these Mishnayos in Kinim. And that's the only reason why we mention this. And so therefore the Gemara is going to come to a different understanding of the basic concept of an olah becomes chatas according to Rabbi Yeshua. It's here, let me show you. It's have you ever used the Steinsaltz before? If you've never used it, it's going to be a little bit tricky. Hold on one second. Here, we got it right here. Okay, so Hamshacha, I don't. That's a good question. We need to. Oh, okay, it's right here. Okay, so the Gemara tells us now. We're just continuing with this Mishnah. So on the bottom of 67b, we're going to cite this whole Mishnah. We're not going to go into in such depth, but I basically described it and all the variables, all the enumerations, you just have to sit there and figure it out exactly. But Tashma, so the lines on the bottom on 67b. Aisha Shamra, a woman who said, Hare I Cain, she as a vow, she took a voluntary vow that she's going to bring these pair of birds. She said, Imiwait Zachar, if I give birth to a boy, I have to bring these two birds as an Olah. Yolda Zachar, so if she gives birth to an Olah, maybe a Shtekinim, she brings two birds. Why? Because she has to bring the two pairs of birds. She has to bring two as an Olah, and then another cane, one as an Olah, one as a Chatas. So Achas L'Nadra, one for a vow, Achas L'Chavasa, and then one for the obligation of a Yoledis who gave birth. Nisanasal L'Kohen, once she gives them to the Kohen, a Kohen Tzaracha Sosan Shalosh Shemal Achas L'Mata. So three of those birds are an Olah, and one below is a Chatas, and that's what the Kohen is supposed to do. Well, also came. Let's say the Kohen didn't do that. Why didn't he do it? He wasn't paying attention at the Daf Yomi. He didn't know what he's supposed to do. He brought two above and two below. Below Nimach, he didn't bother asking for which ones. So now he has to bring another bird, one bird, because he was supposed to bring three olas and he only brought two. That's first case, one. And now the Gemara is going to spell out 6 other permutations of how this could happen. There were supposed to be 3 as an olah. 2 for the vow and 1 for the Yoledes, which also was accompanied by a Chatos, but he only did 2 as an Olah, so now he has to replace it by doing 1 more. But that's only where it's min echad. But let's say it was shnei minin. Let's say she brought 1 cane was from a Torah and the other cane was from a Bnei Yonah, and he doesn't know which one was supposed to be the Olah. So now he has to bring another one in case he has to bring another 2, 1 from a Torah, 1 from a Bnei Yonah, to make sure he filled it all in. So in that case, she has to bring 2 more shtayim. But let's say Pirsha Nidra. Let's say she at the very beginning she said, "I'm going to bring the vow from a bird from either a Torah or Bnei Yonah." But she doesn't remember which she said, so she has to bring 2 more to fulfill her vow. So in that case, Tzricha Laviyot Gimel Preidin. So he has to bring another one just to make sure that the vow that was done right. And that mimin echad, and if she brought it from two offerings, mishnei minin, from 2 different types. So that's how we're going to tavi dalet. Then she'd have to bring a total of 4. Pava nidra, and Rashi says this case is where she said, in addition to all this, she said the vow has to be associated with the carbon of the oledes. So then you have to add on another one. That's tzricha shetavi od chamesh bread, and then you get to another 5, and then. And then if it was mimin echad mishnei minin tavi sheish, and again the same idea. If it was from 2 different minutes, she'd have to bring 6. Nisanat l'kohen. Let's say he gave it to the kohen. Ve'eni odeas manesana. Then and she doesn't know what she gave her. Halcha kohen v'asa ve'eni odea ma'asa. Then the kohen doesn't know exactly what he did. So then tzricha dawad preidin l'nidra. She'll need to bring 4 for her vow. Shtayim l'chovasa, 2 for the yoledes. The chatas achas, and then 1 more for the chatas. Whereas Ben Azai says beis chatos, he has to bring 2 because Ben Azai is of the position that the chatas is fixed by what the oah was. So just in case what the oah is, it has to match. Okay, so all of this was basically stems out from the same logical principles that I stated at the beginning. In that context, the Gemara says this statement, and the Gemara cites what I had said at the beginning. The whole reason why this is relevant is because Amar Rabbi Yeshua, Zeu Shamru Kishil Chai Kolo Echadu Kishil Meis Kolo Zayin. Now, when he's alive, the ram's voice is 1. It could just blah 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 whatever. But when the sheep dies, it makes 7 sounds. It makes 7 musical notes. What are the notes? The 2 chatzotros. The Mission Kingdom spelled them out. Let's see if I can remember. The 2 chatzotros from the skin, from the horns, from the skin. It makes the drum. From the tendons, it makes the naval and the kinor. The harp and the lyre, and then what else are we missing here? And then from the then it makes the flutes from the thighs. Okay, so and that's the vort that I said upstairs. That when Lubavitch Rebbe was alive, he had not even 1,000 shluchim who were carrying out his mission. Now that this year he had 7,000. So again, it went fold from the time that he passed to now. And that's like when you're alive, you have one voice. When you're dead, you have seven. By the way, that's if you live your life spiritually. Also, I want to make sure that everybody's eating these English muffins, and you most likely have to make a motzi for it. So make sure you do it mizuman. So the Gemara says, so isn't this the question of Rabbi Yoshua? Because we see from here that this Mishnah is Rabbi Yoshua, and it said that the Ola does not become a chatas through Amshach in these cases. So the Gemara qualifies what it said in the name of Rabbi Yoshua. Ema da Amar Rabbi Yoshua afuke midei mi'ila, basically l'chova mi'amar. No, when Rabbi Yoshua said that the Ola becomes a chatas, this was also a follow-up of what we said yesterday. The chatas, after it's brought properly, there's no mi'ila because it could be eaten by the Kohanim. So that's all he was saying, that the Ola can be eaten by the Kohan, that the Ola becomes a chatas in the sense that it no longer is open to Me'ila. But he never said he never meant to say that it fulfills your obligation. Basically, he doesn't say it's a complete chatas. It's just in this one discrete law, it's a chatas. Okay, so now we're up to the next Mishnah, Samachas Samad Aleph. The basic point of this Mishnah, I have to basically, let's take a step back. So how do you kill an animal? What's the process of killing an animal? What's that called? Shchita. The process of killing an animal is called shchita. So if an animal is not killed, if it just dies on its own, that's called a nevela, and it's not kosher. There's another way in which an animal could be not kosher, and that is even if it's killed properly, if it has a defect, it has like, let's say, a hole in the lungs. What's that animal called? That animal is called a treifa. So there's a big difference between a nevela and a treifa. A nevela transmits tumah of a carcass of an animal. If the animal just dies, let's say the sheep drops dead, was not slaughtered, then if you touch it or you carry it, you become tameh. But if you slaughter the sheep, then the shlita is motzia midei tumah, and so motzia midei nevela, and so it's no longer able to become tameh. Okay, so but what about a bird, a fowl? So the fowl, we say that, yes, if it just dies on its own, it can transmit tumah, but it's a different type of tumah. It's a lesser form of tumah. It's called tumah beis habuya. It doesn't transmit tumah through touching or carrying, but only through basically being in your throat, through eating. Let's say you take the tumah, let's say you take the chicken and insert it into your body through a suppository. Are you going to become tameh? What? I mean, presumably not, because it's beis habuya and it's not. Wow. Okay, so now the Mishnah, our Mishnah has discussed that when it comes to a kachim, how do you kill a bird for kachim? Navon, what's the manner in which the Kohen kills the bird for kachim? Excellent. Through malika. The bird is killed through the process of malika. So malika is where you take your finger, the Kohen takes his finger and sticks it through the thumb through the back of the neck of the bird, and thereby cuts a 2 simanim. So the question is, let's say that bird somehow becomes disqualified through any of the methods. So does that bird, which was killed through malika, is it like a nevela, a carcass, or is it like a shchuta in that it's no longer able to transmit tumah? That's the basic question of our Mishnah. So kol hapsulim shamolku, all these disqualified cases that we're talking about, and the Mishnah is going to spell them out. If you did malika samsua, the malika is no good, but eino mitame beis habuya. But the bird is no longer transmits tumah through the beis habuya. Instead, it's taking it out from being an avela. It's no longer a tameh. So what are the examples? But malak b'smol. Let's say you did the malika. Which hand are you supposed to do the malika with? Your right hand. Navon, are you a lefty, by the way? Okay. Baruch Hashem, you're not going to have a problem in the avoda next week when the Beis Hamikdash is built. So malak b'smol, obalai. Let's say you did the malika with your left hand or at night, or shachat kuin bifnim v'kachim mechutz. Or let's say you did a shchita on an animal that was not sacred, but you did it inside the Beis Hamikdash, or you did it on kachim outside. Eino mitamas beis habuya. Then all these cases you're not mitame beis habuya. Why? And the assumption is, the Gemara is going to say that the assumption is because Rashi says the malika is actually serving a benefit. What's the malika benefit in all these cases? Shim olu lo yardu. That if they that if they went up on the Mizbeach, they don't have to come down. So therefore, the Malika does have some added value to the context. So, but in those cases, it does not transmit to Tumah.
Switches to Shkita here.
Yeah, if you did a Shlita on the Chulin, but it was in the wrong place, because it was in the temple. Exactly. Or you did the Kachim, or you did Kachim B'chutz. You did Shlita on the Kachim outside. Well, we're going to see all their cases. Okay. In all those cases, Namatame Beis Abuya. Moak Basak, and let's say you did the Malika with a knife. That's what you're talking about. You didn't do Malika, you did Shlita. Moak Chulin, or if you did Chulin, Bifnim, you did Malika on Chulin, V'kachim Mechutz, or you did Malika on Kachim outside. So the case before was you did shchita on the bird outside, but here you did malika on the kachim outside. Then, or if you did a Torah and shaloigia on the top of samachasam base, let's say you did a Torah an adult bird, but the Torah is only kosher as an adult, and the bnei yonah is only kosher as a baby. So if you did the Torah when it was not yet old enough, shaloigia is manan, bnei yonah sha'avar manan, or if you did the malika on a bnei yonah, this baby bird that was already now Sha'avar's manan, that it was too old, or shayav shagapa, or that its hand had dried, the wing had dried out. By a bird, we don't have what's called a blemish, but if it is missing a limb, then it's going to be disqualified. In the case of this wing of this bird, we're talking about a case where it's like a limb that dried out, or shenismasena, or the bird's eye was blinded, or shenikta rago, or the bird was missing a foot. It was missing a foot. Metame beis abuya. Then all those cases, it will transmit tama. Why? What's the difference? So we'll just say what Rashi says, according to the Mishnah. The Mishnah says, kol shepsua b'kodesh, anything where the disqualification happened b'kodesh, Rashi says, sheboa azar b'achsher. It came into the courtyard and it was kosher, and then it became disqualified. Kol shepsua b'kodesh, eina metame beis abuya. Then you did the Malika, since the psul was happening only in the temple, then we're going to say it's not Matame. But if it was possible before it came in, then Matame Beis Abuya, then it will transmit the Tumah. That's the distinction according to the Mishnah. So it says, comes along the Gemara. Amar Rav, our Mishnah had said, small Balayla, that if you do it with your left hand, or if you kill the bird at night, you can't do an avodah in the temple at night. So if you did it with your left hand, if you did it at night, you're not going to transmit tumah. It's not going to transmit tumah. But it comes along to a zar. Let's say you do it with a non-kohen or a sakin. So the case of a sakin is already listed here. But if you do it with a non-kohen, or if you do it with a knife, then Rav says mitama beis abuya. So if you do it with a non-kohen, it will transmit tumah. That's what it will still transmit tumah. That's Rav's chiddush. So the Gemara says, well, let's try to analyze this. Ma'ishna small, the islayach shera b'yom kippurim. What's the reason why if you do it with your left hand, it's not going to disqualify? It's going to still transmit. It's not going to transmit tumah because in a certain context, a left hand is a kosher service. There is one service a year which you can do which you're supposed to do with your left hand. Anybody know which one? Well, you can just read the next line in the Mishnah. What? What is it? On Yom Kippur, what is it? What? That has to be done with your right hand. What's with your left hand? What do you do with your left hand on Yom Kippur? We already had it in our track day once before. What? Okay, what's the sensor? then censors the spoon, the kaf that the Kohen takes into the Kodesh Kodashim, Kohen Gadol takes into the Holy of Holies with the incense in it. And then he's supposed to pour that scoop, that incense into both hands, and then pour from both hands onto the coal. So since there's a service which you do with your left hand, so therefore it will be motzia midei nevela. So if that's the case, also night has a service, and there's an area where it's a kosher service. That's where you burn the innards. But if that's the case, zar nami islayach shera. There is a service which a non-Kohen can already do. What's that? Bishlita. A non-Kohen can do the slaughter. A non-Kohen can, you can come and bring your sheep to the base of Mikdash and say, I want to bring this as a carbon, and then you do your own shlita. It's totally allowed. So don't we see? So if that's the case, if you did Zar did the Malika, it should be okay. The Gemara says, no, shlita lavavode. That's not considered a technical service. Is that really the case? Va'ama Rabbi Zera, the Gemara brings a contrast of shlitas para, the para aduma, the red heifer. By the way, has anybody seen the red heifers in Israel? I saw them. I saw like 3 of them in Shiloh. And you're going to slaughter them on the Mount of Olives, and you don't need a base of Mikdash to do that, and it's not a carbon. But the Shlita, if a non-Kohen does it, it's disqualified. Shlita b'par bizar psua. So if you're saying Shlita is not an avoda, why can a non-Kohen not do the paraduma? Umachi Rav Allah, and Rav proved this by quoting the psukim Elazar v'chuka, by saying there's the Xeris HaKasu between Elazar and Chukah to tell us that it has to be a Kohen who does it. So we see from here, Shlita is done by a Kohen. The Gemara says, no, Shani Para, no, the case of Para is different. The Kochi Bedek Abayiti, it's not a Kochi. It wasn't Kochi Mizbeach. It wasn't something that was consecrated for the altar. It's Kochi Bedek Abayiti. It's only its value goes to the temple. So the Gemara says, well, that proves our point. Well, call the Chayin who? Kochi Bedek Abayiti, Kuna. If Kochi, that's just its monetary value is sacred, requires a Kohen. Kachim Mizbeach Mibaye, for sure, something that's an actual carbon should require a Kohen. No, there are certain things that are only allowed by the Kohen, but it's not called an avoda. And what's that? What's Maros Negayim? What's Maros Negayim? Anybody know what Maros Negayim is? Anybody know? Maros Negayim is that if you have an affliction on your body that's tzaras, and you go to the Kohen, only the Kohen can tell you if it's tzaras. The Kohen, you can go to the biggest, you can go to the biggest Torah scholar of the generation, and you could say, you go to Rav Moshe Sternbach, you go to Rav Chaim Kanievsky, and you say, what is this? And he says, oh, that's tzaras. It's not tzaras. You need a Kohen. You need Navon Liptag to go there and stand next to Rav Chaim Kanievsky, and Rav Chaim Kanievsky could say to Navon, yeah, this is Taras, and Navon will have to announce it. It needs to be a Kohen announcing it. So that's not an avoda. So we see from here the fact that a Kohen has to do it doesn't make it an avoda. So the Gemara says, well, if that's the case, I can prove to you that a zar doing an activity is considered to be an avoda that's kosher. For Neilach mi bama, what's a bama? Bama is there was a period of time where the carbon was brought outside the base of Mikdash. The Karbanos, before the base of Mikdash was built, there was a time was called Heter Abamos, and a non-Kohen could bring it there. The Gemara says, Mibama lo yoav. No, we don't learn outlaws from Abama. The Gemara says, Velo. We do learn outlaws. We even had this earlier in our tractate. We had it only 17 days ago. On Daf Nun Aleph, it said, V'nelev. We said, Vatanya minayel yotze shem oloyo. Right? How do we know if something goes up on the altar after it had gone out of the base of Mikdash, out of the courtyard, and you put it on the altar, you don't take it down. Shari Yotze kosher b'bama, because we know that it can go out of the courtyard and be kosher by a bama. So those 2 for 1 up and 1 down. Gemara says, okay, Tana Azos Torah Sa'ola Samachlai. So the Gemara's answer to that is that this idea does not come from the bama, but it actually comes from Zos Torah Sa'ola. So it's not that we're running anything out from the bama. So now we have seen the position of Rav. The Rav says a zar who does the Malika, it's going to still transmit Tumah. Rabbi Yochanan argues with Rav. Rabbi Yochanan Amar zar aimetame ableis zar. If the zar does it, if the non-Kohen does it, aimetame abeis abliya. It's not going to transmit Tumah through the base abliya. The Boaz, you're out of here. have a great Shabbos. But when you get it done, if you get it done before Shabbos, send me a geschmack picture. I'm very excited about this. So, so thank you for your help, Boaz. Appreciate it. So the zar is not metame on the base of Blia. So Rabbi Yochanan is arguing with Rav. Rav said that if the zar does the malika, it is metame. Rabbi Yochanan says if the zar does malika, it's not metame. But he does say sakin metame base of Blia. Everybody agrees about sakin, so the only machlokas is about zar. Rabbi Yochanan, Rav says the zar is metame, is not metame, and Rabbi Yochanan, excuse me, Rav says that a zar is metame basically, and Rabbi Yochanan says he's not. So the Gemara basically is going to question. The Gemara brings a question on Rav from our Mishnah, because how would Rav explain our Mishnah? Obviously, Rav knows our Mishnah. So Tanan, call up Psula and Shemokum, Likasa Psula. Any Malika that was disqualified is disqualified. Bishlam or Rabbi Yochanan, when it says kol, that it's disqualified, but they're not metame, that's coming to include a zar, asuye zar, to include the non-kohen, that is not metame. El Rav, kol asuye mai. So, shkoyach, a chodesh tov, and a good Shabbos, a chodesh tov. So he says, El Rav, kol asuye mai. According to Rav, what's it coming to include? Rav asuye small v'layla. According to Rav, isn't it coming to include if you did it with your left hand? And so El Rav kol asuye mai. So the Gemara says no. According to Rav, it's not coming to include the zar. He's saying he's not metame, but it's coming to include if you do it with your left hand or if you did it at night. So the Gemara says, what are you talking about? Small v'layla be'achikatani. That's explicit. It says explicitly that in the Mishnah. So the Gemara's answer is Tani v'hadar mefarish. The Tana says something and repeats it. Why? Why would he have to repeat it? I mean, that's unusual, but it's like a forced answer. But that's what he has to say. So okay, this is today's daf. A chodesh tov. We'll stop here. A big shkoyach to everybody. Shkoyach chodesh tov. Good Shabbos. Good Shabbos.